example, there was two bad guys, and they had found themselves in kind of this rocky area right here. There was a wash. It kind of went north to south like this. This is a desert area, kind of think NTC, something like that, right? Over here was this hill. And the friendlies had put an observation post up here. So we put an observation post that could overwatch this whole area. Then over here was kind of a hilltop. So the whole idea is this is sloping ground, right? So think of this as low ground and that's high ground, all right? We saw that the enemy had gotten into this little rocky, this real fortified location. The OPs, they could see the enemy moving up, and they saw them get in there, but they couldn't see past. I mean, they couldn't see right in here, but they could see up north, and they knew the enemy had left, right? So what the OPs had realized is that the enemy had walked up and gotten into this wash, and they stayed there because they couldn't go past. So they relayed to the friendly units, hey, we believe the enemy got into that rock face. We believe they're still there. We can't see them in there, but we can look past them. They haven't come out, right? So task was given to these guys, hey, go in there and go get them, right? So this fire team started moving up, right? They started moving up into this wash, and they kept going. Well, immediately, the adversary heard them coming. So they put one guy here, and the other guy could just bounce back and forth because all the brush, remember all the underbrush in desert environments, it's all in that low ground, right? So these folks made forward, and immediately they started engaging the soldiers right in that wash. So they made contact, okay? So what do these folks decide to do? So these folks immediately, what everyone do? Let's go get the enemy, let's go kill him, right? So they started moving this way. They started going this way. They all bounded out, got out. Now remember, this is real open ground, right? So they started moving up. And the enemy would just move down this wash, and they'd sit there and just shot them all to hell. That's the moment where I was standing there watching this example, and they're just getting peppered. This one guy, he was low crawling and trying, doing combat rolls and come up and do that thing. It was just terrible. So finally, this guy made it this far, and they'd all been shot. They all looked like they were, clowns because they had so much marking cartridges stuff all over them. And that's when, the one soldier just stood up and threw his helmet off. Said, that's it. What am I supposed to do? After I told the op 4 to calm down a minute, ceasefire, I asked the soldiers, like, what are you trying to do, man? And he said something I thought was most impactful. He goes, sir, I'm trying to win. I'm like, okay, well, what is winning? They're supposed to be dead and I'm not. Like, well, are you doing that right now? No. Like, okay. He goes, but how can I ever win this situation? Look at them. They're in that wash. And I can't get them out of there. I'm like, I know, it's terrible. Like, well, I mean, and they're in that rocky area. I need a bazooka to get them out of there. As I know, it's just terrible, isn't it? Do you have a bazooka? He's like, no. I'm like, I know. What are we going to do? As he sat there, he still was stumbling. I was like, well, if you could be, what's really the problem here? Well, they're in that wash, and they're using this wash, and they're running up and down this wash, and they're just shooting us. I'm like, I know. It's awful, isn't it? He's like, yeah. He's like, if you could be anywhere, where would you like? I mean, you got to stay in this world here, but if you could be anywhere, where would you like to be? He goes, well, I want to be in that wash. He's like, why? Because it controls it. Like, whoever's in that wash controls this whole thing. I'm like, I know. It's a pretty good thought. I think, so, are you in that wash right now? It's like, no, I'm not. I'm like, okay. So what if you took your fire team and you went back into that wash? Yeah, I really want to be in that wash. I'm saying, but we still got to get them. I know. Yeah, we want to get them. I said, but let's think about this for a minute. When you make initial contact up here and you're in this wash, what options do they have? At the minute you made contact with the enemy and they're in that wash and he's shooting down at you, who does time favor at that moment? Well, it favors him, right? Make contact. If you, though, pull back and you set in a defensive position, and he's sitting there, now what? What's he going to do then? If he comes at you, what happens to him? Well, I'll see him first, and I'll be able to, I'll be able to shoot him. He's like, okay. If he stays there, what happens to him? Well, I mean, at one point I can call a platoon leader. We can bring up, more squads, and we can start, actually bring mortar rounds in there. Yeah, he can't stay there forever, right? If he leaves, what's going to happen? I said, well, our OP will see him. They'll say, tell me where I'm able to go, and I'll be able to go get him again. And remember, he's in that good spot now, but he won't be once he leaves. If he tries to come and flank you, what happens? Well, I'll be able to see him. He'll do just what I did. I'll just shoot him. I said, yeah, that's right. So what do you think you want to do? Well, I need to get back in that wash. And I need to actually break contact and set up a defensive position to call my platoon leader to bring up more elements. It's a pretty good decision, man. Why don't we do that? So these guys moved back. We ran the same scenario. So let's do it again. They walked up the wash. Immediately Op 4 opened up. They bounded back and set up a defensive position right here and just waited. And at that point, it was checkmate. Because that Op 4 in that great position, it was, at one point, it was key terrain, but now it's just terrain. Because the encounter moved. And so now they were stuck with the decision. What do? If they sit there, who's coming? At one moment, time was on their favor. If you remember my METT-TC, so if we kind of go back to my METT-TC, so here was me, here's the enemy. At the very moment, METT-T probably favored the enemy. They knew where they were. They had good ground, right? They were able to. The time was in their favor, and so were they at a position advantage right away? The answer was no. I mean, sorry, the enemy was in a position advantage, but was the friendly force in a position advantage right away? No. So what they need to do? They went through his traps. What is my mission? My mission is, to defeat my opponent. They need to be dead. I need to be alive. Okay? Can I change that mission? No. What do I know the enemy? Okay, there's 2 of them, 4 of us. Do I really have the advantage? Probably not so much. All right? What about time? Right now, in a bad spot, the time's favoring them. So what if I move back and now I have more time? Then what can I do with terrain? Observation. Can I get better observation? If I move down here, I can see them coming. Avenues approach, I can dominate that avenue approach. Where this was once key terrain, once I moved, it changed. Right? So what I'm trying to tell you is that one moment, at the very first moment, at contact, the factors of METT favored the enemy. Once they decided to put those factors in change and bound back and put factors in METT, it then favored them. So then going back to this initial counter, again, the soldiers bounded back, set up their defensive position, and it was kind of quiet for a while. And this Op 4 was, what do we do now? And no matter what they did, they lost. If they left, they could later be hunted down. We knew where they went. If they came down, they were engaged by our soldiers. If they came around trying to flank, they were engaged by their soldiers. And that's how you use, that was a good example of how use METT as a decision-making tool. So overall, what I've talked about here, so as we move on to platoon live fires and different training events, and we're going to assess how leaders make a decision, there's my best advice on how to make a good decision. Use the factors of METT and put them in your favor. And if you do that, then you know you're in a position of advantage. And that's my secret weapon. All right, thanks for watching. Hunt, Race, Kill.